what's up, hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the books that I read in the month of May. In the month of May, I read 5 books and 1 novella. If I'm being honest, it's a little bit lower than usual. I have been on such a reading high this year and have been completing so many amazing books. This month, not so many. I did read a couple of books in May that did take me a little bit longer to finish than normal, and I did finish a lot of books right at the beginning of June, but I'm still content with these books and I'm excited to share my thoughts on them with you guys. Starting with the novella, this month I read Son of the Dawn by Cassandra Clare, which is the first of ebook novellas from the Ghosts of the Shadow Market series. I gave Son of the Dawn 4 out of 5 stars, which I would probably expect because for some reason I never loved Cassandra Clare's short stories as much as I love her full-length novels. There's a lot of different reasons that go into that. Obviously with a short story you have to be much more concise with your storytelling than a full-length novel with hundreds and hundreds of pages to expand upon. Also with all of the Shadowhunter Chronicle short stories, they are co-written with 3 to 4 other co-authors, so it's not always just necessarily Cassandra Clare's works, and it has to do with a lot of other different authors with their individual writing styles. So I never love them as much as her novels, which is fine. Nonetheless, I am still happy I read Son of the Dawn. I absolutely cherish the opportunity to see the first point of meeting between Jace and Alec and Isabel. With Immortal Instruments, I'm just one of those fans where the author could write literally nothing plot-wise, but just including a very normal moment between my favorite characters, and I will be pleased. So I might be a little biased with this story. If I'm being honest, I was not all that invested in the other plotline of the story. I was just really focused on Alec, Jason, Isabel, and I just wanted to read about them as kids. So you know. I did enjoy my time reading it. I'm not sure if it's necessarily the strongest start to a short story collection, but I am really anticipating reading the rest of them. I'm super behind, but I will be catching up very soon, and I cannot wait to continue. The first physical book I read in the month of May is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Calavaro, which is a young adult mystery novel featuring the descendants of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. I loved this book so much. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It completely enchanted my heart. Oh my god, my sweet potato fries! Mystery is one of my favorite genres to read, and I've always been interested in the tales of Sherlock Holmes, so I knew from the start that this would be a great read for me, but I was genuinely blown away with how much I loved it. The mystery storyline in this novel is really complex. In this installment specifically, all of the crimes committed have some homage to the original tales of Sherlock Holmes, and it's sort of like a taunt to the main characters, and I just really loved it. And by far the thing I love the most about the series is the characters. The Sherlock Holmes series has some of the most developed and thought-provoking characters that I think I might have ever read in YA. I feel Charlotte and Jamie start out both very archetypal, but as the story goes on and we are unveiling more layers and more flaws and strengths of both of their characters, it is just such a whirlwind, and I feel like it is so hard not to love both of them. And another thing I really loved about this book is it encaptures everything I love about YA for entertainment, because it's fun, it's fast-moving, it's engaging, but it also has that level of depth that is absent from a lot of those books that I read for entertainment. So it just has such a nice balance of everything I love about this genre, and I'm so happy I read it. If you're like me and you love mystery, the Sherlock Holmes series is not one you're going to want to forget. Also in the month of May, I read the sequel to A Study in Charlotte, The Last of August, and unfortunately, I was really let down by this sequel. So many people that loved the first book loved this one more, and I just can't relate. It did not compare in my opinion. I gave it, I think, 3 out of 5 stars. The one thing I really liked about the sequel is the setting. It starts in England, but the majority of the story takes place in Germany and Berlin, and later on they go to Prague. So the setting of Europe was just really different from a lot of books I've read, and I enjoyed that. And I also think in theory the main mystery of this story was really unique, as it follows an underground art forgery ring, which I've never heard about in books before. Unfortunately, I didn't love the majority of the rest of this book. I was nowhere near as invested in the story as I was in book 1. This one just didn't connect with me, and I guess the way it has for other people. And I was also so annoyed with the characters all the time in this story, which was such a difference from book 1. It was just angsty, and it wasn't the kind of angst where it's I want this to keep growing and follow this through. It was the type of angst where I'm this needs to be over now because I'm super super annoyed. The Last Arrakis did have its strong moments. I don't feel this is a bad book. It's just when I think about this book, I think more about the frustration than the positives. I think also reading it like right after I read book one and loved it so much, I was bound to compare them and it was bound not to add up, but I am still super in love with this series. I cannot wait to dive into book three, and I'm really, really happy I picked it up regardless. In the month of May, I listened to 2 audiobooks. The first is The Last to Let Go by Amber Smith. This is a story of a girl named Brooke who comes home one day to find out that her mother has murdered her abusive father, and it just follows all of the events after this massive tragedy. I really enjoyed The Last to Let Go. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really, really happy I picked it up. I loved Amber Smith's debut, and it was just equally as compelling, and I just could not hesitate to read her second release. What I love about The Last to Let Go is it's so unique. The concept is so different from so many other series issue contemporaries out there, and I was just so drawn to it, and it did not disappoint. It's a really, really wonderful tale about what happens when children are forced to grow up too early, what happens when children are forced to carry adult burdens on their back. I will say I would have liked to see a little bit more on the topic of spousal abuse. There are a few flashbacks here and there, but I think a few more scenes would have really strengthened the novel. But I do understand that this also isn't just a story about spousal abuse, it's a story of children of spousal abuse. After reading both of Amber Smith's works, one of the things I love that is present in both of these is that her main characters force me to think outside of my own perspective and really challenge my ideals, and that's just such a wonderful experience to have when reading. I think it's really easy to judge Brooke for a lot of what she does in this book because she doesn't treat people very fairly sometimes, but we also have to remember all of the different situations she's placed in that are out of her control, and it's just really thought-provoking and interesting and very, very engaging, and I just loved this book so much. I didn't love it as much as the way I used to be, but like I loved the way I used to be so much that that's a hard one to beat, but I can say with sincerity that Amber Smith is one of my new favorite contemporary authors, and I will absolutely buy anything she writes. The next book I read in the month of May is City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. This is the 4th book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I'm reading this as a part of the year-long Shadowhunter Chronicles read-along that I am hosting. Now, City of Fallen Angels has always been one of my lesser favorite books of the Mortal Instruments series, sort of by default. It's just, I feel it's a very, like, forgettable book. It's not as memorable. It doesn't have a huge impact on the story up until the very, very end of this book. But that being said, I really, really enjoyed my reread of it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, of course. I feel like in the Mortal Instruments fandom, City of Fallen Angels is always referred to as a filler book. The only reason it exists supposedly is to get to the next part of the series, which I definitely understand that perspective, and I used to feel that way. But I feel like every time I reread City of Fallen Angels, I appreciate it as its own, as an individual work, as opposed to just one piece to getting to the rest of the story. There's a lot of interesting themes and character dynamics that are explored in this story, and I feel like overall, there are more events in this story than people like to remember. I just feel like City of Fallen Angels is frequently pushed to the side because the individual plot of this story, other than that last few chapters, is really wrapped up before the story ends. It's really hard to keep things spoiler free, but if you want to check out the full spoiler-filled discussion for City of Fallen Angels that I had with a few other members of the Dreg Society, I will link it down below. Overall, I just have this growing appreciation for City of Fallen Angels, and I'm really grateful for that. It's so nice to be able to return to a book that I previously didn't love all that much, and now just like get so much more enjoyment out of reading it, and I'm so happy I reread it. And the final book that I listened to on audio this month is Before Let Go by Marieke Nijkamp. This is the story of a girl named Corey who returns back to her hometown after the death of her best friend, and she finds out that the town seems to be keeping some secrets and not really explaining the circumstances of her best friend's death. Now with this book, I have some mixed feelings. I feel like I still don't know how I feel about it, so I settled with like a 3-star rating. I really enjoyed the atmosphere created by this story. Now, I'm not normally one to enjoy mystery set in small towns, but for some reason it really, really worked with this story. The town is just so creepy and secretive and almost like cult-like that it was very, very intriguing and one of the driving forces of the story, in my opinion. I also really enjoyed the bipolar disorder representation in this novel. It's a little strange for me to say that, I feel, because the best friend who died has bipolar disorder, so she's not like an active participant in the story, but it's just expressed really well through the main character's narration. It felt very well researched, very educated, and I feel, most importantly, everything that was supposed to come across about bipolar disorder did come across, even though there are some like varying perspectives and unhealthy perspectives about mental illness. Like, you come away with what you're supposed to think about bipolar disorder from this story, and that's really important to me. Additionally, in terms of representation, the main character, Corey, is asexual, and Kira, the best friend, was pansexual. One of the selling points about picking up this book for me was the fact that it is one of the very few YA books that does have a pansexual main character. But that being said, the pansexual character is dead at the start of the story, and the asexual character, although I'm not ace and I can't speak for the representation, I've heard from Own Voices reviewers that it comes across more as aromanticism as opposed to being asexual, and I completely agree with that statement, so that's a little disappointing. But the rest of this book is just weird. I just don't know how to describe it. I mean, first of all, I didn't really love the main character, which like wasn't in my favor for the story, but like the plot and the mystery and everything was just so weird. Like I said, it has this like creepy cult-like community, but it comes across almost supernatural. I just don't know how to talk about this book. I don't know how to properly express my feelings on it, and I honestly had a similar experience with Marieke Nijkamp's other book, This Is Where It Ends. So maybe it's just something with her books that like they just like don't fully connect with me. Nonetheless, it was a really interesting story, and I'm not upset I read it. I don't know if I necessarily would say I would recommend it, but like the things I really liked about this book, I really liked. It's just the other parts I don't have anything to say on that. That really concludes this monthly reading wrap up. I very much hope you guys enjoyed it. In the comments below, please let me know any books that you particularly enjoyed in the month of May, because I'm always looking for new recommendations. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new video. Bye!